what's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Drinks with Johnny. Thanks for being here with me in the bar. I am super excited. This is a very rare, different episode. I am joined by an old friend, the CEO, creator, whatever you want to call it, of Hopeless Records, the record label that signed my band, Avenged Sevenfold, many, many years ago. They're celebrating 30 years as a company, as a label, going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then soon after that, they'll be at the Punk Rock Museum. So today we are joined by Louis Posen. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.
Dude, this is awesome. When I got the email that you guys were celebrating 30 years and doing all this stuff, and you were going to be doing interviews, podcasts, things of this nature, I immediately was like, let's go. I mean, this is Louis. This is the man that helped me get to this point in my career. So I just have to say thank you, and thanks for your time today being here, man.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, and I feel the same way. You've played a huge part in how I got here, and so it's mutual. And I don't do a lot of interviews over the last 30 years, so this 30th anniversary has caused a few of these things to happen, and I'm used to being behind the scenes and putting the spotlight on the artist, so it's just awesome to be spending time with you.
Yeah, man. Dude, so 30 years, Hopeless Records. We'll get into some of this Avenged stuff. Everyone at home can see I got all this stuff behind, and you know, we got a few records that you were a big part of behind me there. So we'll get to some of that, but let's jump right into what you got going on today. What's going on? I mean, we're recording on August 13th. In literally 2 weeks, you're going to have the whole display, the Hopeless Museum display at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio. That's got to be so cool for you as the CEO of starting this record label so many years ago, as a music fan, knowing about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as we all do, of course. And so tell me a little bit about how this came to be and what it means to you, Louis.
Yeah, so it's a shocker that we're going to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not just our traveling exhibit that's gone to several museums across the country, but they're putting in a long-term exhibit in their main hall that includes your bass, so super excited about that.
Yeah, man, I am too. I saw that. I was like, okay, like when they asked for it, and I wasn't really sure.
Yep, so when early on we thought it would be a fun idea to celebrate the 30 years by creating an exhibit and putting it in road cases to be able to go to different places. So there's over 1,000 artifacts from over the years, all the way back to 93, 94 when the label was started. And it started in a museum in LA, the Valley Relics Museum, then it went to New York. Now it's going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and as you mentioned, it'll end up October 17th. Is when we'll be debuting it at the Punk Rock Museum in Vegas, and then it'll be there long term.
So it's going to stay in the Punk Rock Museum after it goes around?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Obviously, that's with Fat Mike and Fletcher and a few of the other guys that we're mutual friends with. We'll get into that in a second. But let's talk about specifically the artifacts that you got going in on this travel one. What's going to be in Cleveland? You mentioned my bass that was there. I did, before we hit the cameras here a second ago, I did mention I was a little thrown aback, a little cut when I got the press release for this, and it says all these things are going to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame display case, everything like that, yeah. And it says among these things, Avenged Sevenfold bass. Not a Johnny Christ bass, but
right.
But an Avenged Sevenfold bass.
Right.
I felt a little slighted there, Louis.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't know who writes those press releases, but maybe it's like Twitter. They had a set number of characters they could use, so they couldn't.
That was probably it. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt then.
But for this podcast, we'll clear it up. It's Johnny Christ's bass that's in there, and it's actually, I think, from the era. I think he played that on Warped Tour, either 2003. Warped Tour, I believe.
Right, yeah. So it was in the warehouse. Well, when I got wind and we were going to be sending that stuff in or whatever it was, they were asking for specifics for that era of Wake in the Fallen, which was the first record that I recorded on. I met you right before we went in and started recording that, basically. Yeah. And yeah, it was one of the, they asked for something in that era. And to be honest, Louis, I had to like scramble to find it because I was like, dude, I mean, this is a 20-year-old bass somewhere. Like, I don't know where it is. So I was glad because I only had a handful at the time. I was using Music Man Sterling's at the time.
Oh, well, we're stoked to have it. And then, as I told you, we've got Brian's guitar that he played on Waking the Fallen in the traveling exhibit. So that'll be there as well.
I'm so glad that you have that. And I definitely, once it gets to the Punk Rock Museum, I'm going to go down there and mess with it some way. I have to. Like, there has to be something I can do to mess with Brian on that one.
Perfect. We'll pull it out of the exhibit, and then you could play it in the Pennywise garage.
There we go. There we go. I'll bring it out that style. But
we are going to have some impromptu performances there, so you're welcome to join.
Yeah. So you're going to be in the Punk Rock Museum, which is in Las Vegas. Everybody. You said the 17th of October?
17th of October is the big event, 8 p.m. to midnight, and actually public's invited. So we have a whole VIP set up, but yeah, everyone's invited. Come on out. It's going to be a good time. Have some drinks with Johnny, and you could walk around the museum with your drinks there. And, there's the Pennywise Garage where we're going to be doing some impromptu shows. And a lot of our artists are going to be out there too because it's same weekend as When We Were Young. And I think we have 8 artists on that festival.
Oh, right on. Can you say something again for a second?
Sure. I'm here. Are you?
All right, yeah, I just had to make sure that was still rolling. Yeah. The thing from far away didn't look like it was rolling. So
this is what happens when the host is the producer.
You know, that's so Louis came in here a little late. You guys might be able to notice watching on YouTube right now that the screen behind me isn't on what it usually is. Of course, it usually works, but when Louis showed up, apparently he decided it didn't want to work, so we rolled without it. Had a few technical difficulties. I'm running everything myself. But how? I mean, we're like 5 minutes into it. How you feeling, Louis?
This is what happens when you don't drink anymore. Things stop working. So.
Is that what it? So I got to start drinking again? Did you come on my show and tell me that I got to start drinking again when I just stopped?
No, I'm so proud of you. It is called Drinking with Johnny. I think.
But it's always been the title, and it's never been about alcohol. I mean, early on, I guess it was about alcohol, but like it quickly changed once I started having these conversations with people like yourself and other entertainers in just the business of entertainment, right? And there's so many people who drink and don't drink, and just drinks is really just the icebreaker. Just saying. It's a catchy title, people. You guys all know how to say it now. It's got just like Avenged Sevenfold, it's really easy to say.
Right, totally. Well, I'm here for you, not for the alcohol.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Louis. Yeah. So yeah, going to be, this thing's been traveling, going to be going in. You mentioned the guitar of Sinister Gates that was used to record, all those tracks on Waking the Fallen. I remember that guitar was because you mentioned before, Fred actually was the one who brought it in for you.
Yep. Fred Archambault. Thank you, Fred.
Yes, the man, Freddie baby. Yeah. A lot of great. That was our first time working with him. Was on Waking the Fallen. That would have been the Schecter, not his signature. Wouldn't have been Sin's signature. It would have just been a standard Schecter. I don't remember which series it was.
You're gonna find out when you come out to the.
Me and everybody else who's gonna be going to the exhibit will find out.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of fun stuff in there. A lot of it we found in my garage, like the really early stuff. There's a letter that we used to send when people sent in demo tapes that would have like multiple choice and say stuff like, sounds like it should be on Fat Records and had their address, or, can't you afford a microphone to record this? I don't know, we were kind of pissy punks back then.
Wow.
So that's, so we have stuff like that. There's an awesome letter from the estate of Leonard Bernstein saying how much they love the Punk Side Story and what a kind of tribute it was to her dad's work, and they're not going to sue us. So that was pretty cool to have that handwritten letter from Nina Bernstein. So there's just so much great stuff. And then there's new stuff from, Seeing Queen and Destroy Boys and a lot of the newer artists as well.
Right. And speaking of your new artists, you guys also did an EP celebrating these 30 years, right? And you had some newer artists doing some covers of some legacy bands, right?
Yeah, we thought that'd be fun to do this sort of cover series. And we have a song coming out every week this summer, and then we're going to have vinyl at the end of the year. But it's the newer artists covering like hopeless classic songs, including Unholy Confessions.
Yeah, I got to listen to that. I thought it was a good cover there. Was it North Point? Is the
Point North.
Point North. Sorry,
That's
guys. But yeah, Point North.
Yep.
They did a great cover of that. What did you think? So I had a question on that. We'll just break that down real quick. North Point. Did you guys collectively as a label seek out the artists on the roster and say, hey, I think they would be a good band to cover this song from one of the other bands from Hopeless, whether it be Used or All Time Low or anything like that? Was that how it went, or were these bands you just said, hey, we're going to be doing this, and then they submitted their ideas of what they would be able to do?
Yeah, so we said, here's our idea, and here's a list of sort of the top 100 tracks, but do whatever you want. You could pick something on this list or not on this list, but this is just to get you thinking about it. And so, yeah, they had full control of what song they did. And so, one did like a song that's like 2 years old. So it's not like everyone picked something deep in the catalog.
Oh, cool. So you just like sent out a thing and said, we're doing this to all your bands that were on the roster. Here's some stuff. If you guys feel like you want to record it, let's go. And then North Point obviously chose Unholy.
Yep. No one chose the song Hopeless. I was hoping someone would pick the song that named the label, but they didn't. No one picked the song Hopeless. So still open. Avenged can do it.
Oh, well, yeah, you want a legacy act to come in and do that. We can work something out.
So yeah, that was a Guttermouth song from the first 7-inch.
Yeah, that's right. And was Guttermouth the first band that you signed then?
It wasn't even a signing. It was just a 7-inch record. I was directing a music video for them while in film school, and they got intoxicated and said, we dare you to put out a record for us. And I never had any experience putting out a record, so I went and bought a book called How to Run an Independent Record Label. Called Fat Mike because he's the only one I knew with a record label, and said, how do you do this? And put out that 7-inch. And the only reason the label is called Hopeless is because in the book it said you had to have a label, and the first song on the 7-inch was called Hopeless. And it was recorded by Donald Cameron, who recorded Avenged's first record.
Donald, yeah, that was the sounding that they did down on what is that?
West Beach.
West Beach, yep. Yeah, on Sunset, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was not there for that. That was the demo.
Pre-you. It was pre-you. I remember, and Donald called me, and he's like, I've got this band. You got to hear it.
That was after, if I remember correctly, we had a label signing with a label in Belgium before that Matt had cultivated through literally snail mail, just going back and forth, knowing nothing about this label. Yep. being kids, being 18, 19 years old, and being like, oh, they said they'd sign us, we'll just sign it. And it was a terrible idea, and then luckily later on you would come in and re-sign it. So you, correct me if I'm wrong, you might remember this better because as we said, this is kind of pre-me.
Yeah.
How did you, aside from Donald sending you that, hey, said, we got this band and we're recording them right now, you got to hear it.
Yeah.
So you hear it, you do the thing, you meet the guys. I'm not there yet. So talk to me a little bit about the initial meeting and signing of Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah. So it's a long time ago, so a lot of it blurs together, but I clearly remember going out to Goleta, just north of Santa Barbara. I think it was the Living Room, seeing the guys, then going to a Mexican restaurant in Santa Barbara, hanging out, talking about it. They told me about the Good Life thing. That's the Belgian label.
Good Life, that's right. Yeah. I was gonna say I knew it was Good something. It's been so many years, but
so they're like, yeah, we're on Good Life, this Belgian label. Okay. And they're like, oh, but it's a one-page deal. Don't worry about it. I'm like, we got to do things the right way. So I eventually reached out to Edward at Good Life and worked out a deal with him. So it was all on the up and up. And actually still talk to Edward, and he still gets paid every 6 months because he has an override on a couple of records. Yep. Then I remember going to a show in Oxnard or Ventura. It was like a youth center that the guys played, and I just started going to all the shows and hanging out and meeting Matt's family and Val and like the whole gang, and decided we wanted to work together. And had to work out that deal with Good Life. And then it was time to make a new record, and that's when you got involved. I clearly remember sitting in the parking lot of Chain Reaction in a van. I think it was your guys' van or Matt's van, and listening to the demos and going, holy shit, this is like not even just next level, but 10 levels up from sounding the seventh trumpet. So it's a clear memory, and those demos are actually out now. They're on the Waking the Fallen Resurrected, which was the expanded version.
Yeah, which we did. How long ago did we do that? Was that for 25? What was that for? Was that for 20?
It was maybe 15 or 20.
15?
Yeah,
No, because it's just now.
Yeah.
It just did 20. It just did 20 years last year.
Right. So it must have been 10.
Must have been 10 we did Resurrected for.
Yeah. I remember actually how that idea came about was I ran into Matt at the Troubadour, and one of the anniversaries was coming up. I'm like, oh, we should think about doing an anniversary for Waking the Fallen. We've got all those demos that I listened to in your van, and we've got all this extra artwork and stuff. And so that came about like as an informal conversation at the Troubadour.
Right. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's interesting though, because Waking the Fallen was the first record I was on. We were doing I remember what you're talking about when we did Chain. I was like, we hadn't done Chain in a minute. We were going back, and it was kind of us getting ready to do that Warped Tour that summer, where we would then be. I remember you guys had printed out the singles before Waking the Fallen came out with Unholy and Eternal Rest on it.
Yep.
And we were on Warped Tour. We'd play our half-hour set, and then we'd go walk around with those CDs, just slinging them to everybody we could, just handing them out before the record came out. And it was good times. And I remember before that album came out, we actually had a meeting just down. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you remember this, maybe you don't. I think we went to the Long Beach Marina where the sailboats are by the yacht club, and went to like eat at Joe's Crab Shack, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right.
And then we were talking about we had the record pretty much done. We were ready to go with it. This is before that Warped Tour. And again, I'm super green at this time. I think I'd met you maybe 2 or 3 times before that dinner.
Yeah.
Just at random shows like Chain Reaction, like you had mentioned. And I was just like, okay, this is my first record dinner, I'll say.
Right.
Business dinner. I was like, oh, no.
That's just not like those ones you see on TV.
No, it was definitely
indie.
not. It was not. We sat like anybody would at a dinner table with the 6 or 7 of us.
Yeah.
Had some crab and some drinks and got some business done.
Yeah. Well, that's how it is in the indie world. We're all part of the same family. We work together. We're a team. This isn't some, corporate thing where we're just feeding stuff to...
You're not just looking at the numbers.
We're not just looking at the numbers. need numbers to survive, but that's...
Of course. That's why I said just.
Yeah, that's an indirect thing. I'm trying to think if you were did you play the Coconut Teaser show? That show sticks out in my mind. That was the first time I think that you guys played a song from Waking the Fallen, which I think was Second Heartbeat. That was the first song. Was the first song written on the record?
That was the first song written on the record, and actually I wasn't there for that. That was still with Damian Ash.
Okay. Yeah.
If you guys remember, Second Heartbeat was written and recorded for EP that you guys, a Hopeless EP that you guys were putting out.
Right.
And we re-recorded it when we went in to do Waking.
Right.
They had just started playing it for, I don't know, about 6 months before I joined the band, because that EP came out like about 6 months before I joined the band. They had been playing it, and then we went and re-recorded.
Oh yeah, you missed the Coconut Teaser show. That was a classic.
Tell me about the Coconut Teaser show.
There might have been 20 people.
Why don't I know? I mean, I hear all the stories, of course. My brothers, all the stories of the 3 years before I joined the band, and those things are always interesting. I don't remember hearing the Coconut.
Yeah, there was about 20 people there.
Sounds about right.
Yep. And then we went to some place, I think it's still there, that has a mechanical bull afterwards. I remember that. And your bandmates like mechanical bulls, if you didn't know that. And then, so that was a good one. And then I think you were there for punk rock bowling. We all went to Vegas to punk rock bowling.
I was, but I was not old enough to get in. So
you were waiting outside?
I was waiting outside. I believe we were like on tour and we stopped the band in Vegas for that at a time. And the guys got to go in and I was super bummed because I couldn't. And of course it was punk rock bowling. I grew up, a little backstory on me that I don't know if we've really talked about, but I grew up listening to all those bands that, you know, Fat Mike, of course, and everything. Just like the rest of the guys in my band, you know. Yeah. We grew up on all these punk rock. So like, I'm an 18-year-old kid, and they're like, "Oh, it's punk rock bowling with all of my heroes."
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And they show up, and like, "You can't get in." They're like, "Fucking cool."
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't realize that. Yeah, because that was the year. It was the only year we got a trophy because Matt bowled with us, and he's a very good bowler.
He's just, the funny thing is he's not a good bowler. He's just a freak athlete.
Right. So he's better than all the other drunk punk people. So.
Graded on the curve, he's amazing. Right. He's fucking kingpin out there.
So we came in second. That was the only year we got a trophy because Matt was bowling with us. And then I have a vivid memory. This is one of my favorite Jimmy memories. We're going to this super fancy steakhouse. And he has a trench coat with maybe 12 Budweisers in every pocket of that.
It wasn't even pockets, if you remember. He had slid out the lining of the trench coat and could drop them in there. That was the reason why he had such a big trench coat, so he could fill it up. He would put 30 packs in there. If you saw it with 12, that's because he was already 16 deep. Or I think I did the math like that. No, I did not do it very fast. Anyways, whatever that math is. But I remember that because I would wear that trench coat when we go into movie theaters and fill it up with beer.
Okay. So.
But yeah, go ahead.
So at least my memory is accurate that he did have that.
Oh, he had that trench coat full of beers. That's absolutely true.
So yeah, I was so nervous we were going to get kicked out of the steakhouse, but I don't know. I think they were used to eccentric people there in Vegas.
Yeah, dude. So you were, again, you were there at the very beginning with everything. Shared a quick little story about Jimmy the Rev, and you said you know Donald reaches out. You hear this stuff. Was it solely based on the music, or were you still on the fence after hearing the music and you wanted to meet the guys, and then that solidified it? What was it like that you decided, you know, you heard enough, you wanted to be in business with Avenged Sevenfold?
Yeah, that was a time when we realized there was a lot more to signing an artist than the music. I mean, music's always up in front, but that it's about the people, it's about the performance, it's about the vision that they have for themselves. And so we, at that time, started to dive really deep into getting to know artists. It was rare we would just send out a deal because we heard a great demo tape, you know? So yeah, spent a lot of time with the guys. Like I said, met the parents, you know? It was always interesting to me what kind of parents do they have? Are they going to be supportive, or are they going to tell their kid they got to go get a real job the second there's a problem? Because there's always a problem, you know,
right.
in the early days of a band. So, and then what I, you know, really loved about Avenged, which we were, you know, also that starting to look for an artist, is who have an identity themselves that aren't just trying to follow somebody else. There was a million people doing the Fat Wreck Epitaph thing, right? So we were trying to find people that were doing their own thing, and maybe they were influenced by some of that stuff, but they had their own music and their own identity, their own vision of themselves, and you know, Avenged couldn't be more clear on who they were. And there were, back in the day, there were a lot of people sort of anti-Avenged because of the makeup and the stage names, you know, because that was not accepted in the punk rock world. And
to this day, we don't have any hate. It's all love. What are you talking about?
So yeah, I remember calling like a Maximum Rock and Roll, and they're like, there is no fucking way we are going to review Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah, I love
Absolutely. We won't even mention the name in this magazine. Right?
Not even out of Fat Mike's mouth.
Right. So we said, you know what? That's who we want. That is exactly who we want. And, you know, similarly, about a year before, we signed Thrice, who was also a genre-bending, do their own thing kind of artist too. So I think we were really turning a corner in the kind of stuff that we were looking for, which was, yeah, something clearly unique, and that the audience needed something that wasn't the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely had forward thinking on that before everybody else did. I mean, you mentioned bands like Thrice and ourselves. I'll throw in there that we're doing something different. I mean, Thrice, especially down here in Southern California, is becoming a really big name because of the fact that they were doing something different. And here, to your point, in Southern California was all the punk. All that stuff was still pretty dominant, especially in the indie scene. But there was these bands coming out doing things different. And for us, we were dubbed the metalcore band that was coming up and everything. And then, for a period of about 5 years, I feel like metalcore actually got pretty popular. They had the California, Southern California metalcore scene, and then you had the East Coast metalcore scene, and we started to get ourselves seen on things like Headbangers Ball. And I remember our first commercial for Wake in the Fallen was played on MTV at one point. So it's just interesting to me that you start this company kind of, as you said, almost non-serious, just kind of with gutter mouth, doing punk rock things. You're doing punk rock indie things, and almost 10 years into it, you start to have these, forward-thinking visions and start to really become, a label CEO, a guy who's running a fucking label. And it seems like a pretty short time, because you said you started everything in 93, 94, and then all of a sudden you're being one of the forefront thinkers in the industry, signing outside the box bands and stuff at the time. I guess my question in covering all that is, where do you think that came from? I mean, like, go back to your childhood, go back to all of it before you're leading up to this.
Yeah.
Your love for music that led you to it, whatever it might have been, and then as a further to that question, what it was after running the company for several years. What were those steps that led you to being successful in it rather than just a fan of it and just kind of going for it?
Well, we're still learning every day. So I don't know.
I love that answer right off the bat.
Yeah, I don't know that 30 years means we know how to do it, or after 10, it was like a light bulb went off. Oh yeah, here's how to run a record label. We're still learning. We're more experienced. We have more relationships, so we're still learning. But I don't know. For me, music started for me really young. I started going to shows probably when I was 10, and by 12 I was going to all kinds of shows where I saw that year I saw the Police, the Pretenders in the same year, and then I saw my first punk show, X, at the Reseda Country Club in LA. First time I saw like Mohawks and stage diving, and I'm like, oh shit, this is something totally different than like mainstream music. So I thought I was into punk then, but it was really mainstream punk. If you go back at that same time, there was like a Chips episode, a Quincy episode. These are TV shows from that time.
Oh, I remember.
So they had like they had a punk episode. So it was in the mainstream, and so I thought I was into something alternative, but it wasn't really alternative. It was mainstream. And that led to the Ramones and that kind of thing. This is probably way too much information than you want.
No, keep it going. I love this. This is insightful.
But I got in high school really into like K-rock stuff, Depeche Mode, and Cure, and I'm seeing Love and Rockets tonight, so Love and Rockets. But then right after high school is when I started going into independent stores and found fanzines, and that just like opened everything up, like Maximum Rock and Roll and Flipside, and seeing there's not just music, there's like a whole a community that goes way beyond music, which is about being there for each other and helping each other out and DIY and all these things that I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. Not only is it great music, but there's a whole world of people who are interested in the same thing and want to help each other. And so that's what led me to more sort of underground punk, and that's when I got into like all the, Epitaph, Lookout stuff, started mail ordering everything, started driving up to Gilman Street to see shows. That's where I met like the Op Ivy guys and, doing all that. But I didn't know that I was going to be in music. I thought I was going to be in film because I went to film school. And at 19, I got diagnosed with a eye disease where they said I was going to slowly lose my eyesight, no treatment or cure. So I did what every 19-year-old would do when he got that news. I said, fuck you. I'm going to stay in film school. I started directing music.
I know better than you do.
So I started directing music videos, and the first one was for NOFX for the song Bob. And
fantastic.
then the second one was for Guttermouth because they played the show that we filmed the Bob video and said, oh, this is a cool thing. We want to have a video too. So we did a video for their song 1, 2, 3 Slam, and that's when they dared me to put out the 7-inch for them. And it was about 2 years into it. I was doing it as a hobby outside of my film work, and then my eyesight started to become pretty poor, and I decided, you know what, this label thing is going amazing, and this is going to be very tough to be a filmmaker and have no eyesight. So I started doing the label full-time in 1995. And I would say we had a view of how to do things, but it wasn't very experienced. We knew we wanted to do things the right way and wanted to be guided by sort of principles, if you want to call it that, like being honest and living up to our promises and things like that. So we had some good intentions, but it wasn't till, like you said, about 10 years later that we got enough experience and enough great artists to work with that it started to break open, and we became like our own identity, that we're not trying to just be another label that we love, but our own label. And that's the time we started to look at artists differently, like I mentioned. And also when we built up enough relationships that, we could help out someone like Avenged by, helping get on Warped Tour, helping them get the Take Action Tour. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh, I remember that one.
The Action Tour.
I can't wait to talk about that one.
The MTV, like you're talking about, like those things started open because of the work that had been done the 10 years, up to that point. We started, introducing artists to good booking agents. Like I remember we flew Ryan Harlacher out to that Showcase Theater show, and that's the first time he saw you guys. So yeah, I mean, and we're still, that philosophy still exists now. We now have made those principles actual ones that we've come up with as a team. They're on our website. We talk about them at the office, and we're always trying to get better every day, adapt, learn. The music industry is always changing, life's always changing, and we never want to just rest on our laurels. Okay, there's some platinum and gold records, there's artists who have traveled the world, make a living, and we're, a significant part of that. But we know there's always more to learn.
Yeah, I mean, that's life, right? There's always more to learn in life, but I'll get back to the Plea for Peace tour, because I want to see if some of the things that happened out on the road made its way back to you, Louis.
Okay.
I think that was like my second tour or third tour with the band. It was right after Warped Tour, if I remember correctly, or pretty soon after.
Yeah.
But one of the other things I want to go to before we move on from the past is I wanted to ask more about that film school. What was the passion there for? Or was it just like, you're going to film school, did you want to do just music videos? Did you want to do movies? Did you have an idea, or were you just kind of like, I'm just going to pick this as a major?
No, I mean, I've been passionate about film and art and music and just all mediums of art since I've been little. I remember my grandma driving me to the video store and picking up videos. I'd get into certain directors like Alfred Hitchcock. I'd print out all of his films on a sheet and then highlight as I watched each one of them. But I went into film school wanting to direct feature films and wanting to do films that, I wouldn't call them documentaries, but movies that move people, movies that make people think differently about life and about themselves. And when we got a project at school, I thought I was going to make a feature film, and then I started budgeting, and I'm like, oh, I've got $1,000. I don't think I'm making a feature film for $1,000.
There was no Kickstarter back there, huh?
No, there was just mom and dad and brother. Anyway, So then I thought I'll do a short film, and that was too expensive too. So that's how I ended up doing a music video. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do a video for an artist I love. So I picked 2 bands that I loved, looked on their records, saw who their record labels were. And back then you could call 411 on the telephone and they'd give you like people's phone numbers. So I called up and I asked for Epitaph and Lookout, because my favorite bands at the time were NOFX and Green Day. And they gave me the number, and I called and I talked to both them, and they said, oh, the artists, do their own music videos, because back then music videos were not big in punk. And so, yeah, they gave me Fat Mike's number and they gave me Green Day's, which they lived together at the time. And I ended up talking to both of them.
Yeah. And what was that conversation like? Your first conversation with them, I imagine, right?
Yeah, totally. And I'm a huge fan of the band. I'm in film school. I want to make a music video for your song X. I've got an idea. Can we meet? And when Fat Mike was in LA, we met. I had a whole nice vellum-bound proposal for them. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's how the Bob video came. About Green Day, I said the same thing, and they're like, yeah, let's get together when we're in LA. And then, yeah, they were too stoned to show up.
Had a couple of those Green Day joints.
Right,
Trey's always walking around.
That's why it's called Green Day.
Oh, dude, it was the first time I met Trey, real quick Green Day story, was Trey and the rest of the guys was at like a Kerrang Awards many years ago. I think they were just coming back with American Idiot and about to be on top of the world again. And yeah, we were huge fans. Got to meet him, and I had been shrooming all day. We went down to Camden and found shrooms. We were so excited that they just sold shrooms. We went to the award show on shrooms, met the guys in Green Day, and Trey was like, hey, you want to smoke a joint? At the time, I didn't smoke weed. And I was like, nah. He's like, you're not going to smoke a Green Day joint with me?
Right.
And I was like, fucking Trey, man. I love this guy.
I wouldn't be surprised if they grew their own pot.
I mean, we're out in London. I don't know if he smuggled it over there or what.
Right? I don't know. He grew up in the forest there in Northern California, so I'm sure he was growing his own stuff.
He's got a green thumb then. He's got a green thumb for sure.
Yeah, but no, they were nice guys, but I couldn't get them back on the phone. I tried multiple times after that. So my whole life would be different if I did the Welcome to Paradise video instead of the Bob video.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it didn't work out differently, because I could just stand here and be there. Speaking of, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Plea for Peace tour, because that was one of the tours where we stood out like a fucking sore thumb amongst, and not musically. Musically, we were there. It was 18 Visions, Poison the Well,
right.
Avenged Sevenfold. Who else was on
Shadows Fall, maybe?
Shadows Fall was on it, yes. Yeah. Great lineup. Yeah. Great fun.
That's our tour, right? Yeah. Take Action tour. So.
Yeah, that was your guys' tour. We were on it. We were starting out, and Waking the Fallen was I think released at that point. We were second or first on the bill, so we were low. We were on the low totem pole. But we felt like we were on the top of the totem pole. I don't know if you remember how we like to carry ourselves in our early 20s, but...
I remember. We were always picking up the pieces.
Do you remember picking up any pieces from that tour specifically? Because there's a couple of stories that have still lived in infamy from that one.
I feel like there's several phone calls that took place during that tour with the tour manager, because we hired a tour manager to tour the
whole tour, right?
The whole tour, right? I remember there was definitely some phone calls like, you got to talk to your band.
Well, we had Val. It was us and Val out there, basically. Yeah. She was tour managing and running merch for us and stuff. And poor Val had to be the middleman sometimes between us and that tour manager. And I think I personally know we almost got kicked off that tour for something that I did, which was throwing a bucket of piss out the
window.
Out of the window.
Yes, now that brings all the memories back. Wow, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. I was just talking.
That was you.
That was me.
You're right. Okay.
I was talking to Brian from Shadows Fall about that not too long ago. We both remember that we were upstairs. I think it was in Boston. I think it was a home show for them. I think it was Worcester. And the dressing room was on the top floor. There was no restroom there. You had to walk down all the flights of stairs to use the restroom. So instead, we had a bucket in the corner.
Yeah.
And at one point, I didn't know it, and they told me to pick it up. I realized it was pee, and just threw it out the window.
That wasn't even your pee.
No, it was everyone's pee. I mean, it was a trough.
It was a collector.
And I think it narrowly missed that said tour manager.
Right.
Which was probably a bad idea.
Right. Yeah. Well,
I don't think they liked us that much on that tour anyway. Like we were not, these days we've grown up a bit, but we're pretty immature and didn't see eye to eye with a lot of the views of the Plea for Peace thing with the PETA that was involved in it.
Oh, were they? Was that
PETA
one of
was
the-
there.
Okay.
There was a few other things. The general idea, though, I do want to say, was great about that was it was for suicide prevention, which at the time we had on Wake in the Fallen, we had I Won't See You Tonight Part 1 and 2, which dealt with suicide as well. Yeah. And having a tour like that, I mean, that was 2004, I want to say. 2003, 2004.
I think it was fall 2003, maybe. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Or spring 2004. I can't remember.
It could. You know what? Fall of 2003 sounds right. So let's go with that. So it's fall of 2003. No one's talking about suicide prevention. No one's talking about mental health.
Yeah.
Flash forward, we're 20 years later. It's on the forefront of a lot of people's minds and a lot of podcasts and conversations like this.
Yeah.
What was it for you all those years ago? Mental health, suicide prevention, all those things that you felt strong. That you felt strongly about.
Yeah. Even though it wasn't talked about openly, it was definitely talked about behind the scenes, especially in the music community. I mean, it's been prevalent since I can remember that people are dealing with addiction, as well as mental health that might lead to addiction. So it was more about finding a cause that would resonate with the artist and the audience, and we decided to do that very early on. Even though the Take Action tours had different causes over the years, for the longest period of time, it was focused on mental health and suicide prevention. And I don't know if you know, so we ended up a few years after that doing some press conferences on Capitol Hill and helped get a bill passed that gives equal coverage for mental health as physical health. So insurance companies can't discriminate against mental health, and that was partly, due to all the work that all the artists did in raising awareness that this is an important issue and that Washington should think about it. So thank you for that.
Dude,
it was worth throwing that piss out of the...
See, all good things come out of it, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm not a bad guy.
Yeah, but it's still an important issue for us, even though the stigma is way different than it was back then. I mean, we have some artists like No Offense where, we go to see him and he's like, everyone raise their hand that's in therapy. And like, 3/4 of the crowd is raising their hand. That would never have happened back in 2004. Right?
No.
So that's really awesome, but it's still a huge issue. And so, we do an ongoing project called Songs That Saved My Life, which are artists covering songs that got them through a tough time in their life and get interviewed about why they picked that song and how it got them through that tough time. And we give the proceeds from that project to mental health and suicide prevention charities. So that's an ongoing thing we do. That's
so rad. I'm glad to hear that you guys are still involved in that too. And I didn't know about the Capitol Hill thing. That's incredible. Congratulations on that to everybody involved. So we kind of covered it. It sounds like, after film school and stuff. I want to ask you a little bit more about movies in a second, but I know we got more music to talk about here. So, it sounds like the label, in some respects, kind of falls into your lap, the music and everything like that. But you have all this passion, and you're doing good things with it. You're talking about the artist. You're not talking about the money or anything like that. This is why Louis is a great guy and why we signed with him all those years ago and sought us out and stuff. And I want to say again, we've said it over many years, but thank you so much for working so well with Warner when we did make that deal. I know that was, we were touring Wake in the Fallen. We weren't done touring Wake in the Fallen when they started coming in 2004 and befriending us and trying to,
Courting hard.
Courting hardly. There was them. As you remember, we were on Warped Tour.
Yeah.
It was them. It was all the major labels.
Yeah.
AFI had just blown up and signed to DreamWorks, so everybody was like, "We got to go to Warped Tour and see what else is over there and start signing them." This was major labels doing that, and we decided with Warner, Tom Wally, Craig Aronson, late great, and Timothy Oliphant. Over there was kind of, and Xavier, kind of the core
your
guys.
Product manager, Xavier.
Yeah, that was our core guys that we decided we wanted to go with, and we worked really closely. And through that, I just wanted to talk about in the thank you is being able to do Unholy Confessions music videos and the distribution that they were able to bring in, cultivate after the fact that we'd already done Wake in the Fallen. We were able to keep going with Into City even. You guys, I don't know if everyone, that looks like our Warner debut, but Hopeless was still involved in that. You want to talk a little bit about how that transition was for you on your side? I mean, for us, it was great because we were making that step that we wanted to as a band with the people that we wanted to, and we had talked to you about it and worked it all out. So on our end, everything was great and continued to move forward.
Yeah. Well, we try to be realistic about it. You never like, losing an artist to another label, but at the same time, at that time, we were not able to provide what, Warner could provide. It's a different story now. There's a very small difference between us and a major label and what type of opportunities there are. But back then, it was a pretty big difference, especially it was still a gatekeeper business, with who and what you're paying and all that kind of stuff. So we were realistic about it, and luckily you guys wanted to go with someone who are good people. I still know Tom Wally, still know Susan Janko, and all the people we ended up making that deal with. So we just wanted to make the best of it, and they knew they were one of the few major labels at the time that understood that artist development mattered, that it wasn't just about paying radio, and so they said, stay on, let's work together on this. We need that groundwork done. You know their fans, them. We want you to still, put this video out. We want you still to be doing all the stuff on the ground with the singles, handing them out and all those things that's not what they do. So, we developed that partnership, and I think it was very successful. And we still did the vinyl for 3 of your Warner records. That was part of the deal. And so we're still, very involved. We stayed involved for a long period of time. Still,
we'll always be connected in that, obviously. But also, you mentioned the difference between, independent at the time versus an independent and a major now. Would you say in working with Warner, those guys, and, seeing what they were doing maybe on the top, and you guys are doing the groundwork, right? As you just described it, for lack of a better way of describing it for right now. Did you, through working with them, do you think that you gained some information that you've then used? Like from a was that the first time you'd worked with a major label like that? And did you learn anything from them, you think, moving forward?
Yeah, so no doubt. Every experience we learn from, but to get on the inside and see what a major label is doing and what things they're doing that we're not doing was very helpful. And so, but Avenged was actually our second experience with this. Thrice was the first one.
That's right, Thrice.
Yeah, they went to
they
went to Ireland.
That's right.
Yeah, which was not as good of an experience, to be honest with you. And there's some good people over there, and I'm still friends with some of those people. They're not at Island anymore. No one's at the same label.
No, the labels aren't the same. You guys are the only label that's kind of the same.
Right. Yeah. We actually have Al 25 years, Ian, Aaron, and Eric are 20 years. So we have a lot of the same people. But in an independent label, you could keep your people because, like you said, it's not all about numbers. Major labels, they tend to switch staff fairly often. But they just had a different philosophy about it. They were a little more of, we're taking over now. And so we didn't learn as much from them, and it wasn't, I think, as good of an experience. Although that record is so good, Artist in the Ambulance is such a great record.
That was the record for Thrice, in my opinion. That was such a good record.
Yeah. Mine's still illusion of safety, but I'm
Illusion of Safety is, yeah, well, you're biased, but it's a great record too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I mean, we worked with Tepe on those demos that you mentioned. For
yeah.
Waking.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. You're right. Tepe recorded those.
Tepe recorded those. Yeah, it was my first experience in quote unquote real studio recording multi-track like that. And yeah, I remember
it was all in the OC family.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's just and then in that. Again, well, let's bring it to today because I have some questions more about like the business side and how labels ran today. I mean, you have the unique ability to kind of talk about the changes in the music industry over the last 30 years. Both, I mean, I talk about it at ad nauseum here in certain ways.
Yeah.
On the podcast when I have other musicians and we talk about how people are consuming music and putting out new music and everything like that. So everyone has a different school of thought for that these days.
Yeah.
And you've seen the technology, you've seen everything. I mean, we're talking back to '95 when you started doing it full time. What have been some of the major changes, I guess, from your perspective on the business side, the label side, and how the fan is consuming, and of course to this day in 2024, with how fast things move? I mean, how do you even plan for the future? How do you do these kind of things? What has been something that you guys have done for strategy or learned along the way?
Right. So I'm one of those people that thinks the most important things haven't changed. The connection between artists and fans is exactly the same as it was back then. When you're a fan and an artist makes you feel a certain way, when you see them live or when you listen to their music and you then want to be a part of their world and you're looking into them and you're sharing that with your friends and you want to put the LP on your wall, you want to wear the t-shirt, that to me is the same. That's part of our community, fandom, whatever you want to call it. All the stuff around that is what's changing, right? It's the I'm listening on Spotify instead of buying a CD. I'm, finding out about artists on TikTok instead of buying Maximum Rock and Roll. I'm, whatever. Instead of hearing it on the radio, I'm hearing it on the streamings on YouTube.
So you're saying it's the discovery. I don't know what you call it. The discovery tool, the discovery beacon has changed, but it's still discovery.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, the platforms are changing. And the formats are changing, but the essence of it isn't changing. It's just creating music, creating art, getting it to fans, and fans connecting with it in a way that goes beyond just listening to music. Because what we do has nothing to do with like mainstream music, in my opinion, where people don't even know who the artist is. It's like, oh, I like that song, I'll put that in my playlist while I'm cooking. That's not what we do. We're part of a community where these, fans are like part of the band almost, right? They're
they absolutely are.
Yeah, so they're the sixth member,
Yes.
And so that's so it's just a different type of business, a different type of way of reaching those people and working with them. But yeah, to me, it's all just format and platforms changing, but the essence of it is exactly the same. Yeah,
I would agree. I agree with you. I think it's. I think first and foremost is good songwriting and the relationship between fan and band are the two main things that I think will never really change. I mean, you've got good songs and you've got a good relationship with your fan base, and you continue to cultivate that. I think you're doing it for all the right reasons, right?
Yep. Totally. And then now you have to decide, and instead of putting all my focus on CDs now, I'm going to focus on streaming or NFTs or whatever the format is. It doesn't really matter as long as the artist feels that represents their art and the fan feels connected to it and that's the way they want to quote unquote consume it, then that's the format. So then there's the economics that go on in that, which is, how do you project how much revenue is going to come in so you know how much to spend on recording and marketing and all that and overhead and all that stuff. And yeah, you got to be changing all the time because the economics are different on a CD than they are on a stream. So
right. And the marketing too. I mean, the marketing side of it too is part where I guess that's where my question goes a little further, I guess, is when you have these new platforms, you have you mentioned TikTok, social media in general is pretty much the king for marketing these days. How do you approach that though? Because that's different than going, especially for an independent label that's been boots on the ground for so long, for at least the first 10 years, as we talked about, very much boots on the ground, campaigns of that nature, to then see the technologies and the new platforms coming out. No one's really listening to radio anymore. They're listening to playlists, as you said. The playlists, they're just going by, a guy or a girl who's putting out these playlists on Spotify because they have similar likes, and then they throw it on. Yeah. They know the song, but they don't know the artist. They might not even know the title of the song, but they know that when they hear it, they like it, right?
Yeah.
With all that, how do you approach that marketing though? Like, how are you getting people on these platforms to find your new artists? Because I mean, again, you're an independent. You're not the major labels that can go to an iHeartRadio and pay for it to be pushed up there, I mean, there's just obvious differences between major and independent labels there, of that gatekeeping you were talking about. Maybe it's not as much as it once was, as you said, but it still exists. So how do you guys strategically look at that, I guess?
I think the new platforms actually took the gatekeepers away.
Yeah,
right?
I would agree. Yeah.
So now this is more the playground we're used to playing in, right?
Yes.
Which is, we're used to guerrilla, marketing. We're used to what's every little thing we could do to get a fan to find out about this new artist. So TikTok to us is very similar to what we were doing on the ground. I think it's more foreign to major labels who are used to calling so-and-so, paying some extra money, flying them somewhere, and then all of a sudden it's getting a lot of play, right? Mm-hmm. That you can't really do that with TikTok. They're trying to with influencers, right? They're trying to buy.
Yeah, there's always ways. Yeah, there's always ways around that, of course. Right. Like I mentioned, you said influencers on TikTok. It's the same thing as these quote unquote DJs who are putting out playlists now. Mm-hmm. You have the gatekeepers there that are, their playlists are getting all the streams. Then you might go to them and say, I'll give you X amount of dollars to fit this in your next playlist.
So what we did is when TikTok came out, all we did was go find all the people who love this kind of music that are on TikTok and who have the most followers, and say, okay, we're gonna let you know when we have new music out. You love it, you tell your followers about it.
That's awesome. And so that it is very much, like you said, the way you guys have always done it, right? So I guess in that though, when you're going to it, do you still allow the band to, like if they're going to create a TikTok video for a new album coming out, or awareness around a tour, whatever the case may be, they want to do some awareness. Do you guys have any input when they're going to TikTok with that? Are you guys ask them to do some of the goofy stuff ever, where it's like,
do a dance?
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm just curious because I mean I'm not going to name names or anything, but I've been in some rooms where they're looking at a bunch of 40-year-olds. I'm not going to name names of who those 40-year-olds are either, but I've been in those rooms. You can deduce what's happening, and they ask us to do some pretty silly. Not us. I'm sorry. I mean them. Those other white 40-year-olds that have been doing it for a while. Maybe they wouldn't be so inclined to do the viral dance of the week.
Right. So yeah, we know who our artists are, and some are more into those kinds of things and some aren't. And there's different types of marketing for different types of artists. So we're not going to tell, Bayside or, name your other sort of traditional style punk rock band, say, oh, go do, a country dance on TikTok. Just doesn't make sense. It's not right for them or their fans. So
you're chasing the viral part at that point, right? Yeah. Not to cut you off, but it doesn't make sense because, to your point, it's more the indie thing. It's only going to make sense if it makes sense to the fans, not the viral people. Yeah. That's going to be completely fake, right?
Totally. So, but we do sign a lot of newer artists that's their world. It's not weird or uncomfortable for them. They grew up on it. They've been on TikTok since they were a kid, you know. And
that's a fair point, man. It's a different world, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you get a Scene Queen or a TX2. Like, we don't have to convince them. We have, if anything, we have to tell them to slow down.
Yeah. So you're running on both sides, right? Because you're like, you got to tell some people to slow down. Maybe are you telling anyone to pick it up, or are you just kind of letting them do their thing?
We talk to all the artists about what opportunities are out there, and then it's up to them how to do it. We've always had that philosophy.
Right.
It's artist driven. So if they don't believe in it, then it's not going to work. So we tell them, hey, there's this list of opportunities, both in social media and other places, and which ones you want to do. Not every artist even likes to do press interviews. So we always say, hey, what kind of interviews do you want to do? You know, is it just bigger ones, smaller ones? Ones where you like the writer, ones you like the you know. And then it's really up to them. We just need to know what bullets we have to work with. I hate to use a gun term. Sorry.
Are you talking about this in an election year, Louis?
Yeah,
God damn it.
Not really a gun guy. Sorry. For everyone out there, I'm anti-gun. Now you know my politics.
Now you know. Now you know, everybody. Yeah. If you didn't guess by a Californian that started a punk rock label in the 90s, now you know.
Yep.
No, it's interesting to me to get on that side of things with the streaming, TikToks, everything like that. It's so different. I've seen it from the artist side of it for the last 20 years. You've seen it have the unique perspective, like I said, of owning the label and seeing it and it being. I mean, it's more pertinent to you than it even is to me because we got this one career, but you're dealing with a bunch of careers and stuff. So there's a lot of more moving pieces, I would imagine, and that's why I ask about it because, people are still figuring this out. I mean, major labels, independent labels, people in general, doesn't matter. It's still so fresh. There are certain things that you'll try that don't necessarily work, right?
Right. But there were back then too. So
it's not too different for you.
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, it's just moving faster because technology's moving faster, life's moving faster. But I think it's very similar. You just every day you have to be looking at what worked, what didn't work, what's coming, what's not. So I don't know that it's changed all that much. I'm not that freaked out about it like some people are.
I find that very interesting. I love that. I agree. As long as you stick to those 2 or 3 main things we talked about, the wheel will keep moving, right?
I still think it's about artist development. People are like, "Oh, artist development's dead." It's all about viral now. But
I disagree. I think viral is a flash in the pan.
Yeah, totally.
One other thing though has changed, and I wanted to get into a little bit of. We talked a little bit about is the streaming. We still have the vinyls. Vinyls made a comeback the last 10 years or so. I've got the collection. I know you listen to a lot of records as well, which is amazing. Love that. But everything else, aside from records, there's nothing in between. It's records and streaming. That's the way it's consumed these days. We're just audio. I heard you talking on another podcast. I know you don't do a lot of them, so I went back and found the one that you did.
Wow.
Off the Tracks, I believe it wasn't too long ago.
Okay. Yeah.
And you guys got into it a little bit. I wanted to take it a little step further though, with the way Spotify and all these other people are paying you guys out before it even gets to the artist, because we all know how that chain of command goes.
Right.
So before it's getting to you, you talked a little bit about it. You were discussing how there are actual different tiers. Or what you'll be able to explain it better than I did just now. But like, there's different ways that the labels are pushing their artist in on platforms like Spotify, and sometimes you get it through discovery mode. You get things at a discount, and that's why you're seeing it pop up on your algorithms. Maybe talk to me a little bit about that part that has changed, or is it? Seem to you very much like MTV and radio back in the day?
There's some a little bit like that. I mean, the main difference is you only have 4 companies that are really controlling all of retail. So that's Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and YouTube. It's too much consolidation, and what happens with too much consolidation is then there's too much control, and then that too much control manifests itself into doing things that aren't good for music, like how do you pay less for music? So it's a constant battle of how do we get more value out of what artists are doing, and the DSPs, those are the digital service providers, they're constantly figuring out how do we pay less. And so the first thing they did that hurt us was put a cap on how much fans are willing to spend by saying, you get everything for $9.99 or $10.99. Now you've got a fan who wants to invest more in an artist, but they can't. They're stuck at a ceiling of how much they could spend.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that really hurt the value of music. That never happened with like CDs or vinyl, because people could just buy another one, and it was really how much money they had, not how much money the retailer was willing to let them spend. That'd like be going into a record store and say, you can only buy one record even if you want to.
Yeah, even if you got $20, you can only buy that $10 record.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So that's the first thing they did that was not good for the value of music. Then they said the way everyone's going to get paid is we'll take, the pool of money that comes in a month, and then we're going to take our money off the top, and then we're going to give the rest to you based on what tracks were streamed during that month. And the reason that became bad for the value of music is then it just pinned everybody against each other. So the better one artist does, the worse another artist does, right? It's a it's a pro rata system. So when Taylor Swift comes out, everyone else is suffering because that pool of money is now going more towards her than everybody else.
Right. It's not based on you're not getting it straight back to that artist with the lesser streams or whatever, right?
Exactly. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing was they started to control what people listened to by saying, okay, we'd rather, if it was just an open forum of like, oh yeah, I like this artist, so I'm going to get this, and oh yeah, other people who listen to this also like this, so I'm going to get that. Now it became, people are starting to listen to playlists, people are starting to listen to this sort of radio that we've created, and so we're deciding what people are listening to. They're not deciding for themselves. That's the algorithm. And since streaming started, the amount of streams per month that come from algorithm versus someone picking what they want to listen to has been increasing. In the early days, it was like 10, 20%, and now it's like 45, 50%.
Yeah.
So with the DSP in control of what people are listening to, now they can lower their costs by putting stuff in that algorithm that they get cheaper, either by making a deal direct with a distributor who's willing to make it a cheaper deal, or like you were saying, discovery mode, where you say, okay, we'll push you up in the algorithm, but we're only going to do that if you accept a discount on your royalties.
Yeah, which accepting that discount, it just means that money's still coming. You're taking the discount, which means they'll do it if you grease the wheel a little bit. It's literally what it sounds like. It's
pay for play.
Yeah, it's pay for play, but like it's
in a digital sense, yeah.
But it's not even like, oh, we can do that, and it costs more money for us to do that, so that's why we're going to do it at a discount. It's like, no, you're going to take the discount. We're going to give you less on the royalties so that other people can hear it, and we're going to take more of your royalties.
Yeah. And the worst part is it's actually coming from another artist. That's where the money is coming from.
Right. Because
you're getting pushed in front of somebody else who would have gotten a full priced play. Now they're not getting listened to at all. Instead of, and in replacement of that is going to be a discounted play.
Wow.
And all the time, the fan has no idea what's going on. There's no.
Well, that's why the fan, and these days more than ever with social media, they have their opinions, and of course, every human being on this planet is entitled to their opinions. It goes without saying. And then they put them out there, and everyone starts riling each other up on the internet about the artist who's being greedy. And it's like, if you really knew the inner workings, I don't think you would ever say that about any artist. But there's no way for us to be greedy in this industry.
Right. Totally.
It's virtually impossible to be greedy. It's really just looking out for the betterment of every artist present and in the future that is going to have to be dealing with this, right?
Right. Totally. I mean, that's why I spend a lot of time now on these different industry boards, A2IM and Merlin and others, trying to advocate for, the value of music, because it's continuing to be pushed down, and it's mostly because of the consolidation.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So again, because your position, what are you guys discussing to get to a better spot for getting more value back into music? What are you guys finding that maybe is working, or you haven't been able to implement yet, and you're just discussing and hoping it's going to work?
Yeah, well, all the things cause a lot of have a lot of friction, which makes it difficult for a fan. So, all the stuff like you guys are doing fan club wise, or the NFT stuff. That's all additional value to music that goes beyond streaming. And so, we look at all that stuff. Our web store is still a huge part of our business. Pre-orders, merch. Special vinyl, special events, all that kind of stuff. We've been advocating for all the streaming services to offer some kind of fan tier, or artist tier, so you can pay more and get more. Because right now, like I said earlier, there's a cap. So, say you love Avenged Sevenfold and you're willing to pay $2 more a month, that'll go directly to the rights holders and Avenged to get music a week early, or to get the stuff that didn't make the record, or to have a chat with them or whatever. Yeah. And they so far they haven't offered that because it's just more work for them, and the easy thing is to just keep it going and having people pay $10.98 and keep trying to drive the cost down for music.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately tends to be the case in the industry more often, like over and over again, is that the artists have to go out there and cultivate a more fair way and get the fan base, unbeknownst to them in a lot of ways, to be backing them up to go against these DSPs and stuff, and being like, okay, you see this is working. Now you guys need to adapt to what we've cultivated, what the ecosystem is that we've cultivated.
Right.
I think it'll take that, which is going to take a lot of artists doing that.
Right.
Which, as we all know, just takes time.
Yeah. It's hard because a lot of the ones who make the most impact are making a lot of money, and no one wants to go say something negative about the people who are giving, or providing the money. And I don't want to make it out to be like these are bad people at DSPs. They're not. Most of them that we deal with, they're music people, right? But then the people above them are not music people. They are.
Well, once you keep going up those ladders, the very tops of them get to be the people who are literally just getting emails, looking at numbers, and making decisions based on that without. And again, it's not even necessarily that they're bad people. That's literally the job that that they've been trying to do their entire lives, and now they're super successful at it, and they're at the top of their life, and they're happy with that, and that's great for them. Yeah. But there is a trickle down economics that happens from that too, and there is, they will have that separation between an artist and the CEO of Spotify, or the guy running the trust, Yeah. So it's that big gap. I feel that hopefully, I remember when, I don't know if you remember this, but when Spotify was first being talked about, the whole point was to be a combatant to that way of thinking, and now that they become the biggest streaming platform, it seems to me that they changed a little bit of what their initial campaign was to be helping the artists with their streaming.
Well, remember when Google came out, their slogan was like "Do no evil," right?
Yeah.
Right. So I think what happens is they're disruptors at the beginning, and then they become they replace the giant, and then they start taking on the same behaviors of the giant. Because once you get to a certain point of size, it's really about protecting what you have, not trying to find an innovative way to solve a problem.
Yeah. And do you struggle with that a little bit? I mean, you're still an independent label, but you're much more successful, much bigger label than you had been.
Right.
You were a disruptor. That was we already talked about the beginning here. You were definitely a disruptor several times over. Yeah. How do you struggle with it, or how do you maintain the mentality of a disruptor versus a giant?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Something we think about and talk about a lot, because we want to make sure we maintain who we are and what those principles are. So there's been many times in which we could have done things to become a much bigger label, and we choose not to. We don't want to be a 100-person company. We think we lose what we have. So Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are things we would have a more challenging time doing than, say, a 5-person company, but we've tried to find that sort of middle balance. I know we're sort of our philosophy, anyway, is balance, in my personal philosophy.
Furthermore on that, and then we'll go back to we'll get back to some of that movie stuff, because I do want to talk to you about movies. I'm a big movie buff too.
Cool.
So now that we've already discussed this, how the money's going through hands and stuff in the industry, and some ideas of what we might be able to do in the future to bring back some value to music. All great things that will be discussed for many years to come. Let's say this won't be the first and last of it, and this won't be, no one's going to walk away with the answer, with the one clear answer today from that. So my question is, when you're going to sign new bands, now, where is a label discovering bands these days, and what is a label doing? What are you doing when you're sitting down and making those deals? Are you still going to crab shacks? How are your deals still getting done?
Yeah. So some of it's not all that different. I mean, we do find a lot of artists online. Eric, our head of A&R's been doing it, a long time now. We have an A&R committee too, which it's so weird to use the word A&R. It feels so corporate.
You hate that. I don't know why you've always had a problem with the word with the term A&R artist.
I always feel like it reminds me of going into a major label for a meeting. Anyway,
that's how he stays down there, guys. That's how he stays down.
We have a group of people on the team, and we meet every week and we talk about artists. We find out about them every different way. I mean, you could send me an email and that'll end up in the meeting. And so we talk about it, and Eric and Ashlyn go out. They go do research. They go to the crab shack. He's still flying all over the place and meeting with artists. We have artists come into the office. So as I've gotten older, I do less of those things. Right. But I'm in that meeting. I find artists myself. I go do the research after they bring stuff to see what I think. So I still have an input in it, and I still love doing it.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be, I imagine for someone in your position where you recovered how you got into it, but once you're into it, that's got to be the best part, is discovering something and giving it a chance, right? I mean, that's got to be the fulfilling part of owning a label, I would imagine.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's still, is an amazing feeling to go from the first time you go to see their live show and there's 10, 20, 30 people, and then 2 or 3 years later, there's 1,000 or 2,000 people singing along to every song. There's just nothing like that.
Yeah. Well, man, you guys have signed some great artists over the years. I actually befriended a few of them as well. Brian and, mostly Brian, just had him on the podcast this week, actually.
Oh, cool. Fame on Fire?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Kuznets. And Blake, that's right, Blake.
Yep.
Who I just heard a story when he went to our show in Tacoma, was bragging to everyone that he used our dressing room toilet. So that was what he walked away from.
Same way I feel about wearing this microphone.
Well, that's right. But yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to the guys in Fame on Fire. I know they got a record coming out. I didn't get the whole record. The publicist, when I had Brian on, only sent, it was like, here's the singles that are out. And I'm like, where's the rest of the record? I'm about to do an interview about this record. Like, right. What do we got here? So now I'm just busting balls. The songs I did hear, I really liked on it.
Cool.
What's the next? Fame on Fire's got a new record coming out. Maybe they're the one. Maybe they're a band that you're looking at. But right now on your roster, maybe there's a handful of them.
Yeah.
Who's the next artist? Who's the next band or artist rather that is going to make that big next step for you?
Right. That would be like asking a parent, like, which of your kids is going to be the most popular?
No, I'm putting you on the spot. Right. Who's the next Avenged?
Luckily, I only have
Who's
one.
the next Avenged all-time low from Hopeless?
Luckily, I only have one child, so she knows she's the one that's going to be the biggest, the next Avenged Sevenfold. Yeah, so they're all like kids. They're all different. And as you know, not all artists, their success isn't always about the biggest shows or the biggest record sales. You know, success comes in all kinds of different ways. I mean, I think success is being able to make a career out of being an artist. You know, that was a huge success.
Absolutely. So it's what we all started out when we were picking up our things for the first time, just the ability to play in front of people that might kind of like it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at like the Wonder Years. They've been on the label since 2011, and you know, they keep doing great. They have families, houses, kids. They still play the music they love. No one's telling them what music to play. No one's telling them to do dances on TikTok. You know, and they're out there, you know, playing shows in front of, you know, 2,000 plus kids. You know, it's awesome, and they always find a new generation of kids too. So it's not just, you know, old farts out there when you go see them. So Neck Deep's done a very similar thing in their career. They've never had like some huge hit or anything, but very successful artist.
Right.
You know, I think they have, I don't know, 6 million monthly listeners or something. I don't know. No, they have less than that. But anyway, they have a lot of monthly listeners.
They got a successful amount of monthly listeners.
Successful amount. They're making a living. They're doing great. I'm sure they'd love to be bigger. We're working at it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting to look at the newer artists that I was mentioning, like a Scene Queen or a NOFX or a TX2. I think that's really sort of the new wave of what punk and alternative is. And not to say that there aren't more sort of traditional artists coming out that are doing well. There are, but it's interesting to look at the variety of type of stuff that's coming out, and I actually really appreciate that. It's not just someone trying to be who was popular before them. You know, it's someone really trying to pave a new path, and that's uncomfortable for people. You know, like, oh, they don't have a guitar. You know, okay. That sucks, but just let's look at it for what it is. They're expressing themselves. They're taking life experiences and affecting other people with that and making their lives better, making them feel more comfortable and making them feel part of a community. That's why we all did this, not just to play guitar.
Oh, I'm so glad you just said that, Louis, because that was perfectly put. The idea that it matters if there's a guitar up there, what the music is, anything like that. Those are all not to use the word label terribly here, but because I'm not talking about a record label, people. I'm talking about just labels and titles. When you label these things, you know, as a certain genre or anything like that, more than just music, you can nitpick, as you said. You can be critical. There's not a guitar, so I'm not going to be into it. Well, give it a chance, give it a listen, and understand that music, at its core, what it's supposed to be is art that you can relate to, that the listener's relating to, and feel something when they listen to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what instrument is creating that music or what phone is going off in the middle of a very important part of the podcast.
Right, it's my mom calling.
Oh, well, put her on the speakerphone. Let's talk to Mama.
I'm on with Johnny.
No, but it is funny to me, or interesting rather, that like, and I'm glad that you brought it up because that's a big part of it, a big part of that critique and why it's hard for artists and music to advance. If everyone just wants it to look the same all the time, then how is it supposed to advance? You got to be open-minded to new forms of artistry, I believe.
That's why for me, our community is not just about, you know, guitars or just about singing about politics or something. It's really about like an attitude, a lifestyle, a culture, and, you know, having art that fits in that culture that we could all connect to.
Yes. I feel like there are these bands for a long time. I don't know if you felt this too, but it just didn't feel like there was enough bands that were being individuals for a while there. And in the last, I'd say 2 or 3 years, there's been some great ones that are coming out and just saying, fuck it, this is what I want to do. I don't care if it's popular or not. Yeah.
I totally agree. There was a period where everything was safe, you know.
So safe, man. It was
tough.
It wasn't music, man. That was the whole thing to me. That was so. I don't want to speak ill upon other people who are creating art in the world, because I think, you know, more the merrier. But there is a part of me that's like, man, if you're missing the point, then don't put it out.
Yeah. Why do you think we ended up signing? I think 6 like sort of icon bands during all that period, safe period we're talking about. We signed Yellow Card, Used, Sum 41, Newfound Glory, because it was like there was everything was sort of safe. So we're like, okay, let's just sign bands who were doing, who were doing something special from the beginning. So that was an awesome era. But yeah, there was that safe period. I'm so glad we're out of it, because it's so great to hear music now that people are like, I just love what I'm doing, and I don't care if anyone likes it. And I think it's just better than it's been. I think the community is getting stronger because of it.
I totally agree. I'm seeing that for the first time in a long time, and it's getting me excited. I've been able to have great artists on this show. Before we get into movies, one last thing though, I will say, you got to start sending me some of these new artists for the podcast.
I will.
When you get someone you're super excited about, but you got my number, shoot me a text, and we'll figure something cool out for them.
Totally. Do you have a turntable? I'm going to send you some vinyl.
I do. Okay. I have a turntable I have two. I've got one out here in this bonus room and bar, and I've got my old collection of my grandfather's after he passed away, and then I have some new stuff that I've added to it as well. Yeah. And then in my writing studio around the corner, also on this level.
Cool.
I have another one that I can listen to, and I can actually record onto my Pro Tools and fuck with a little bit of the feel.
You have more turntables than anyone I've ever met.
Two. I've got one more than everybody.
So I love listening to vinyl too, because it's uninterrupted. It's just you're in it. You're fully in it.
That is the thing. It's not just throwing it on the Alexa or Google Home app or whatever while you're doing stuff. Save that for the podcast, people. Listen to this podcast when you're doing other shit. You can learn by osmosis while you're getting shit done. When you're gonna experience a new piece of music, sit back, experience it, listen to it, see what the artist is trying to say, and if it relates to you at all before you decide if you like it or not. That's just my opinion. Who knows?
Cool. Well, they can always stream on Spotify too, but I like doing both,
Oh no, totally.
I like having the streaming, and then
absolutely.
and then I like being able to be home, get a glass of wine and listen to a record.
And the streaming, actually, for years it was always such a drop off in sound, and it is still from a record. Don't get me wrong, but it's gotten so much better. Yeah, totally. It really has. Like sometimes I listen back and I'm like, oh, you know what? That's really fucking good. They found a way to really make this sound pretty close to the recordings these days. Yeah, which is a great thing. Totally. Before I let you go, I appreciate the time. I know you got to drive and try to hopefully miss a little bit of this traffic on your way back up to Van Nuys.
I'm gonna go see my cousin who lives out here. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. You made plans for traffic. This is what Southern Californians do when they have to go from LA to Orange County. Plan on sticking around and waiting out the traffic one way or the other. For everyone who's not from California. But yeah, so let's get into that movie stuff real quick at the end here. Behind you, I've got a few posters that I've signed: The Sandlot, Tombstone. A big, also in TV, Married with Children. I got Ed O'Neill signing behind you over there of Al Bundy Poke High jersey. So I'm big into a lot of different genres of movies and stuff. What is your favorite movie? I mean, you mentioned Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah. So I know you're into the horror idea of things. Suspense, right? Yeah. Horror and suspense. But is that your favorite genre still to this day, or was it ever? Or talk to me a little bit about movies. What are you into?
So I've gone through different phases, I would say. When I was in film school, I got really into Akira Kurosawa, and that's what kind of led me into this, where movies can make a difference in your life feeling, where it wasn't just about entertainment. And then I got into a lot of more art style filmmakers, Jim Jarmusch and others, and so I'd say I like storytelling. I like things that make you think about the world a bit different than how you currently think about it. So that's my favorite genre, but I get into all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm watching Cobra Kai with my daughter Ellie, so I could get into the basics, and we went through during COVID, we watched all the 80s rom-coms and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Well, okay, so in a couple of different genres, give me a couple of your favorites from the genre. Maybe I know it's too hard to pick an all-time favorite. It's impossible. So let's go with those films you were talking about, where you walk away feeling something. What's a movie that everyone should see?
Yeah, so the one that comes to mind is Rashomon by Akira Kurosawa. That's a game changer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really amazing.
I haven't seen that one, so now I got to check that one out.
That's really great. Slacker. If you haven't seen Slacker, you should go see that.
Yeah. I've seen Slacker years ago, though. I'd have to rewatch it because I could picture the cover.
Yeah.
From the, I'll tell you, from renting
That's
it.
a good one. I don't know. There's so many classics out there. You should go see Repo Man if you haven't seen Repo Man. And that's where you could hear some early LA punk. Circle Jerks are in it and on the soundtrack.
Nice.
A lot of other, I think, Fear.
I haven't seen Repo Man. You're naming movies I haven't seen. I was like sitting here thinking I'd be able to be like, yeah, I love that. And nope.
Yeah.
That's the difference of film school and not graduating high school.
Right.
So
I wouldn't have made any money if I ended up in film. I would have ended up doing all these art films.
Well, that's not what it's about. That's what we just talked about.
That's okay. No, I wouldn't say I would be any more happy or less happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But just would have gone down a different path.
That's true. 80s, real quick then. I got to get a fun one here that maybe I do know.
80s rom-com?
You mentioned 80s rom-com. Cobra Kai, by the way, I'm a little behind. I think I got into season 2 and I dropped off. I got to get back into it.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah, we went to go see all the Karate Kid locations during COVID because we were driving around going to all these locations. It was a lot of fun. Let's see, 80s rom-com. Let's see, mine is probably Breakfast Club, but my daughter's, what's your favorite? Dirty Dancing is hers.
Dirty Dancing, a little Swayze action. All right. I like it.
She likes the good girl that ends up with the bad guy.
You got to watch out for that, Ellie. You got to watch out for that.
Just in watching movies.
You got to talk to my wife about that. I don't know how that worked out for her.
I don't know. I think Breakfast Club still stands up. A lot of them don't. We watched, I don't know, like Pretty in Pink and stuff. I was like, ooh, this kind of doesn't work anymore.
The prostitution thing is probably not the best role model.
Oh yeah, and like we watched Revenge of the Nerds. Oh yeah, it was
so good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, the ones I really love are from when I was a kid, but they're just not appropriate anymore. Like The Jerk, that's probably in my top 5.
Love The Jerk.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate for the cancel culture, but that's also changing too.
Yeah.
I feel like they could go back. You just gotta have thick skin. It's comedy, people. Right. Just get a little bit thicker skin. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And I don't think the intent at the time was to say something discriminatory or negative about anybody. I think that was the comedy at the time, and everyone thought that was funny. But I understand. I mean, maybe everyone didn't think it was funny.
No, of course they didn't. But not everyone thinks everything's funny, regardless. I think it's important to point out to look at the intent and the context behind it. And I'm not saying that those give people free passes to say whatever the fuck they want either. Right. And, I mean, we do have freedom of speech, and you're going to offend people, so you can say whatever the fuck you want. But I mean, in the sense of, you shouldn't, purposely insult everybody.
Yeah. Well, we can watch The Jerk together. We shouldn't tell anybody that we're doing that.
Yeah, no. We'll cut that out of the episode.
Right.
But again, thank you so much for coming in. We could have kept going for a lot longer, but I'm gonna let you go today. Maybe we'll have you back on with some when you guys got some more stuff going on. But right now, we'll tell everyone again, if you're gonna be in Cleveland, you got to go to the Rock and Roll Museum, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame rather, and the
August
Museum
24th.
August 24th. It starts. And how long is it running again?
So the Traveling Museum will be there that weekend, and the long-term one will be there indefinitely until they kick us out.
Nice. So
the one with your base
my base will be there indefinitely.
Yeah.
Can we change the press the press release on this and make sure it says Johnny Christ of Avenged Sevenfold's base?
That's who was calling me to fix that.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. It was your mama's the one that's fixing it.
She's the publicist now.
I love it. It's a family operation at Hopeless Records. Everybody, go check out the Traveling Hopeless Museum. Easy enough to find. Follow Hopeless Records for more on that, right, Louis? And go to hopeless.com. You can find all that stuff. Very easy. And of course, Punk Rock Museum will be really cool. Are you going to be doing any tours there?
I might. Yeah, maybe I will.
That would be
interesting.
Me.
Yeah,
I would be.
We'll do it as a duo.
I would do it, man.
Yeah.
Mike hasn't asked me to do it yet.
Okay.
So
He did the first time I went there. He did the tour for me, and there's 2 levels, and he didn't even make it to the second level. He was drinking during the tour, and I think he was passed out by the time we finished the first floor.
Well, I'm sorry that I missed that tour. I still haven't actually gone, by the way.
Okay, well,
I gotta
October
go.
17th.
It might be my first time going. Maybe I'll get to see my bass.
It won't be there. It'll be at the Rock and
That's
Roll
right.
Hall
It'll
of
still
Fame.
be in Cleveland.
Right.
I'll get to see Sinister's guitar. All right.
Yeah.
Fred Archibald's guitar. We already covered that.
All right.
Thanks again, brother. I'm putting the hand out for
Awesome.
a handshake. Thank you again so
Awesome.
much. So good to catch up with you
too.
here on the podcast. Everyone, go check out more from Hopeless. A lot of great new artists coming out there. Obviously, the Touring Museum that we covered. And thanks again for being here with me, for actually being here with us. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time, as always. Cheers.
Thanks so much.